Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today it's time to have a look at some of the last change logs of the year. There was a lot of changes over the festive period and it's time to have a look at them. My guess is generally when it comes to War Thunder there's a little bit of a lull period, like a few weeks after the 1st of January, so that time we'll be able to relax. I'll make some recap videos on 2020 and also some predictions and also hopes for the new year. It should be pretty fun. So the first changelog was on the 23rd of December, and the 23rd of December brought us a bunch of aircraft and helicopter changes. The first one being the Reggiani 2005, the Series 0. Issues with armor element materials have been fixed, so once again, hopefully that makes it a bit more realistic. The PE-8, the twin icon of the 250 kilo bombs, has been removed from the mounted weaponry menu. I'm guessing it doesn't use them. The F2G1, the machine gun ammo belts have been changed to post-war, post-World War II ammo has been added. So basically before, if you didn't know, the F2G did have the early 50 cal belts, basically meaning that it didn't have as powerful belts. Now, now it does have the powerful belts, and now you can just run tracers, which give you APIT. They set everything on fire, and also with all the tracers, it's much easier to see where you are shooting. Another thing to also mention about the F2G, I've flown it a decent amount right now. It does feel like Corsair. It's kind of as simple as that. It doesn't maneuver as well as you would want it to. It does have good high-speed performance. It does have a good top speed, but whenever you're under a specific speed, so generally when you're under 500 kilometers an hour, it doesn't handle very well at all. And the only thing that's really nice about it, and the only reason why I would have it at 6.7, I actually think it should go down in BR personally, because the P-51H, which is a 6.3, does everything better than it in general combat, in air realistic, is that it gets 2 individual bomb drops when it comes to ground realistic. So that means that you can bring the two 1,000 pound loadout and you can actually hit 2 targets instead of 1 on the ground. And that is actually very useful, especially when they're 1,000 pounders. So that would be the only reason to have it at a higher BR. The A109EOA2, the camera position in zoom mode has been fixed. Well, that's always nice. And the A32A, the radar warning system has been added. So that's another mechanic to that wonderful plane. If you've never flown it, I know a lot of people talk about it being too high in BR, yada, yada, yada. Give it a go, and you'll understand why it's at its BR. The G91R4, the new weapon presets with an option of carrying 4 guided surface missiles and the relevant combination of bombs has been added. Using such presets will mean that 2 offensive machine guns from the left side of the fuselage will be removed. So basically, the G91R4, which is the premium for both Italy and also Germany, now gets access to 4 Nords. Now, it's incredibly annoying from a gameplay point of view that this has been added. Basically, Nords are some of the most brain-dead things in the game to use. They are very good and very easy to use, and a few countries still really struggle with counters to them. Even with the addition of the ZSU-37-2, there still isn't a true counter for the Soviets against something like a G91. At the same time, Britain does have at least, the Chieftain Marksman, but they still struggle as well because of the range that you can launch the missiles from. The Nords are incredibly effective in ground RB, and it seems like what's been happening, instead of trying to change them to make it so it's not as ridiculously powerful, instead what has been happening is every nation has been getting their version or bullpups instead. So what you see is stuff like the Étendard, the Scimitar, the A4s. Every nation is getting some kind of AGM carrier, even if it is in a small way. So we'll see how that affects the high tier balance. I haven't been playing it too much recently, basically because of the fact fact that the event's on, and generally staying at mid-tiers is better for the event because you get into matches quicker, and also at the same time there's a lot more interesting vehicles. The MiG-21 MF and the MiG-21 SMT roll and pitch stabilization modes have been added for full control mode. The MiG-21 MF and the MiG-21 SMT, the MiG-21 PFM, the rudder efficiency has been increased at high speeds. So this means the vehicles should be more maneuverable, they should be easier to control, which will be nice. Hopefully this has some kind of effect on them, especially in simulator. Then there was some sound changes. The volume of the firework fountain sounds in the hangar has been significantly reduced to a more reasonable level. This was definitely a problem, at least in my opinion. At the time when the seasonal hangar came out, it sounded like there was just explosions in my head over and over again, and that obviously is a bad thing. Generally, when you play a game, you don't want this constant battering of your brain, and I'm glad that that was changed. The volume and the frequency of components on Allied ground vehicle engine sounds will now change. Depending on the distance, they're now easier to distinguish from other sounds. This still has issues on certain maps and has done for a long time, but it is nice that now it is easier to distinguish engines, because then it gives you some extra knowledge on the battlefield on what's going on. The main map that it really struggles on is Sweden. Sweden, you can hear people from absolutely miles away on the map, and I don't know why that is. For some reason, it just is part of how the game works. So yeah, it's kind of annoying actually, because it means that any like sneak attack or anything like that has to be done with engine off instead of anything else. The priority of the artillery burst round sounds has been changed so that they overlap the sound picture minimally as possible. That's good, so they don't take over what's going on. A bug where the sound of fire of an enemy/allied aircraft location near the player might be heard in the cockpit has been fixed. Well, that's good as well. And the sound mod compatibility mode has been enabled, where rapid fire gunshots are created as pre-recorded loops. So once again, another thing for the sound mod guys. Generally, I haven't needed any sound mods recently. The general sounds of the game I think sound really good. They've worked a lot over this year on improving the sounds of the game. If you compare this to where War Thunder was at the start of the year, it's in a much better place compared to that. Then we have change logs for the 24th at 2.3.0.46, and basically in this one they added the GPU objects. So basically if you go on a map like Ash River and you go and if you have grass turned off, and even if you don't have grass turned off, you will see that there are just logs around the place, and that is just to give you a little bit more ambience, a little bit more stuff going on. It makes it look like, you know, there's more, I suppose, more detail to the ground. And they've added this to a bunch of different landscapes. You can see here on Sweden, it is the same, and I think it looks really nice. You know, it just adds more stuff to the map, making it look more realistic, making it look like there has actually been a battle there. The damage model of the fuel tanks on ground vehicles has been improved. After destruction, the fuel tank disappears from the damage model. Any following hits don't cause fire or explosions. Disabled fuel tanks did not cover other modules or crew members. The animation of the fuel tank destruction has been added to the hit camera. That's pretty awesome. So, you know, you can't get hit in the same place over and over and over again, especially if that thing has already been destroyed. So this means that it'll give people a little bit more survivability. And if you haven't seen the new fuel explosions, like the effects, they look really cool on the vehicle. It's kind of like what they used to be on ships, but now on ground vehicles, and it just looks awesome. Engine and warhead parameters in the Bolide missile for the ASRAD have been fixed. Rocket motor thrust has been increased. The warhead is now a shape charge / fragmentation, similar to the RB-70 Mark II missile. So hopefully that has made the ASRAD better. I haven't actually heard anything of it since it's been added to the game. I'm personally going to be probably playing some more Sweden to get the STRV122B at some point. I think there's a general idea that needs to be discussed when it comes to stuff like the ASRAD and also the Florac-Rad. The fact that these vehicles are the same research cost as their top tier MBTs means that it's a very hard it's a very easy decision on what to go for first, right? You're always going to go for the MBT because it's going to be more useful in more situations, and I feel like there should be a redressing of the research costs of these vehicles. Even if, in the case of the Florac-Rad, you made the Leopard 2A6 450,000 RP, and then made the Florac-Rad something like 320,000 RP, so therefore the RPs would pretty much balance. I think that would be better than the current system, where there is no real incentive to get the Florac-Rad because it's going to be useless in the majority of situations until you've researched the Leopard 2A6. So yeah, the same with the ASRAD and same with stuff like, well, the ADATs is slightly different, but you know, people are going to want the Challenger 22F compared to the British ADATs. So they changed some sounds again. The height of the sound indication in falling bombs in ground or naval vehicles has been doubled. The time available to evade the bomb has consequently been increased by 1.5 to 2 times. So basically, you know when it's coming, where before it would just hit you in the face. Now, generally, if bombers are doing this correctly, you still shouldn't really have a lot of time, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. SBAA gunshot sounds have been improved to be much more distinctive at distances up to 2 kilometers for better warning for pilots. They still need to fix the tracer issue when it comes to SBAAs. If you didn't know, the tracers don't exactly line up with where the bullets are going. The best example of this is the M163, where you can get shot by what seem to be on your side invisible shots, because the tracers actually follow where the shots are going. So, and I mean like at a later stage. So what happens is you get sniped and then you see the shots, and it's very annoying. Hopefully at some point that gets fixed, but you know, the sounds are also really nice to hear. If you haven't heard them yet, you know, it sounds really good. Then a few more ground vehicle and model changes. So the Arietes get a less magnification on the first stage sight, so it goes from 10.6 to 12, and then it goes to 8 to 12. So technically, you should have a higher field of view now when it comes to the first sight, which I think is fine. It's not a huge difference as well, and it's basically the same as the Centauro MGS, as it says there, since they had similar gun sights. The EBR got put up to 4.7 from 4.3. That vehicle, I've heard a lot of different ideas about it. A lot of it's overpowered, you know, it's doing this, it's doing that. You know, it's the standard event vehicle jargon I hear every time an event vehicle gets added and everybody is playing it for the first week. Oh, it's broken. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. Oh, it's, you know. And I'm just kind of waiting for the thing to settle, like the dust to settle. I don't think its maneuverability or mobility is a problem. I've seen a lot of people complain about it. I've also read the literature on the EBR, especially this version, and there is a reason why it doesn't move too well on snow, and it doesn't move too well in heavy conditions. Even though it does have the metal wheels to help it, the main issue the EBR has is the engine power is still very weak for the weight of the vehicle, and that means its low-end acceleration is really not good and puts a lot of stress on the transmission. I've seen these things whip about and have a good time. A lot of people asking for its BR to be increased. We'll see going forward if that's the case, and if it does, I mean, it'll be a really nice vehicle to run with something like the ARL44. So yeah, it's pretty much as simple as that. The ST-KFC 25121, the 15mm machine gun ammo has been reduced from 5,640 to 3,000 rounds. still enough to be able to do whatever you want with it. The 15mm are very good at anti-air. They have very high muzzle velocity, they have very large magazines, so overall the 251 will be a very, very good AA. Not entirely sure. Well, I suppose it was added because the model was ready. But the main thing is with the 25121 is that, it's a very good AA. Hopefully at some point we can get a Soviet AA and a British AA between that 4.7 to 7.7 area. And even more extreme for the British, actually. The T10A, the rate of fire has been increased from 2.9 to 4 rounds per minute, so they've massively buffed the reload on it, which is good, but they have reduced the gun depression. It's now at 3, but then again, it's Soviet. I'm not really surprised by that at all. The turret horizontal traverse speed has been reduced from 17 to 14 degrees per second. So 2 small nerfs, in my opinion, and 1 big buff. The rate of fire was the biggest issue for something like the T10, and now it's down to 15 seconds. That's incredibly positive for the vehicle. So that'll make it a lot better to use and may even force it to have a different BR. We'll have to see how it goes with that thing. People will be unlocking it. I think I'm at like level 73, I think, with a few of the challenges and special tests to do. And also at the same time, I did think I got the vehicle through the partnership program, so we'll probably be playing that over the next few days, and I'll give my opinions on it. The M60 AMBT and the HSTVL, a bug with the lack of auto-correction of the distance of the laser rangefinder in SB mode has been fixed. Well, that's lovely. That's great to hear. And the rate of fire of the Striker. The Striker, the rate of fire has been increased from 6 to 8 rounds per minute. And this is kind of an interesting thing to think about. So the Striker is one of those vehicles which is an incredibly modern vehicle, and there are a bunch of different sources on its fire rate. And this is something which we see quite a lot when it comes to these modern vehicles, and it's something that I do want to bring up here. Oh, come on, work for me. There's something that I do want to bring up here as a general point when it comes to this stuff. So the fact is, if you go on the forums right now, there was quite a lot of discussion on the fire rate of the fire rate of the Striker. And this is something which always happens with American vehicles because people don't understand what classified means when it comes to American vehicles. Every Tom, Dick and Harry has found different sources for, what the gun can do. So here's one of the official responses when it comes to the Striker. Hi, we had different sources submitted conflicting with each other. One listed actual 8 RPM from a Striker platoon leader, another one 6 RPM from an army reporter, and other documentation claimed a maximum of 10 RPM. We had to make a call, and we decided to go with 8 RPM. This is the problem with stuff which isn't fully defined. This is the problem with having stuff which is up in the air and not entirely classified, at least in this case, but just when you have different opinions and also when you have different sets of sources. It means that you have to make a call, and normally that call is along game balance. And this is something that I brought up 2 years ago when Update Advancing Storm came out in Update 1.71, where we were going to get situations like this. And whatever decision Gaijin made when it came to balancing these vehicles, through historical sourcing and also guesstimation, when it comes to the armor of a lot of the top tier vehicles, they're going to get blasted for it. And this is one of those. No matter what call they make here, it is the wrong decision, because there will be people who want the better rate of fire, because they want the vehicle to be better. There'll be people who want it to get better ammunition. There'll be people who want it to get better mobility. There'll be people who want a different version, either to make it better or to make it worse or to make it more balanced, whatever it is. And at the end of the day, what Gaijin has to do is they have to pick which set of values that they can find through sourcing to actually put together and make the vehicle. And no matter what they do, no matter which ones they pick, there's always going to be dissenters who want the other values. And that is just something that has to be lived with, and it's something that I personally have to deal with pretty much every day when talking with people. What will happen is, this happens a lot with the Type 90 recently for some reason. A lot of people are not happy with the Type 90 armor values, and then I have to remind them that it's a classified vehicle. And they could just make up anything they want. They could make it. They could say it's made out of cardboard, for the love of God. But the main thing, when it comes to it, is no matter what you do with these high-tier vehicles, there will be people who are unhappy. That's why I much prefer talking about stuff like World War II vehicles, Korean War vehicles, anything like that, because it's so much easier to be able to just go through the sources, go and have a look at the technical reports, go and have a look at the battlefield reports, and then work out what these vehicles are about. Whereas modern day vehicles, you can't really do that, and it absolutely sucks, at least from my point of view, from, trying to talk about these things. Just remember this: Chobham armor. The armor that is on, or the armor that is the basis for the Challenger 1 for the British and the first M1 Abrams, that armor and those values about that armor and what it's capable of, they're still classified. So even to that level, it is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, it's nice to see that they've changed the striker. We'll see with this increased reload if it does go up in BR or not. It has all of the nice little bells and whistles. They changed hull break. So it's a lot more survivable now. It doesn't get hull broken in the turret either. If it's hit with kinetic rounds, it has a really good penning round. It has thermals on literally everything. It has really nice stuff to it, so we'll see what goes on. At 9.0, it's a very strong vehicle. The next vehicle, or the next server update, is on the 29th, and this is the big one. So this is the one which I think a lot of people have been looking forward to. I personally have been looking forward to it as well, and it's mainly because of the issues that has, happened in Air Realistic recently. I am at the stage now where I am spading, because what I do is I don't really use a lot of premiums. I just research and spade, so fully modify vehicles as I go up trees. Right now, with the British tree, I am at a point where I'm at 8.7, and there are a lot of vehicles which really struggle when they are stock, and that is kind of true across the board when it comes to this tier of 8.7 and 9.0. And what I've had to do is I've had to put my progress on hold because of the fact that 2 vehicles were added which have annihilated the matchmaker over the last 2 updates. The first one is the Harrier GR1. The reason for that is because the Harrier GR1 has pretty good low-end acceleration, but the main reason is it does have SRAMs, and also it does have flares, and also pretty nice guns. So it has defensive capabilities, it has really aggressive capabilities, and against stuff that is lower BR than it, that cannot get the energy advantage over it, it really annihilates them. And I found that firsthand when I was playing stuff like the Saber Dog, when I was trying to get the German air-to-air missile kills for that decal. And I realized after that, I don't want to touch this BR until they move this thing. This was when the Harrier was at 9.3, by the way. Then, the last update, they added the A7D. And the A7D has the same issues that the Harrier GR1 had when it was released. It has access to really nice missiles, has access to flares, and now has access to even more firepower, and can actually end aerialistic games incredibly quickly with those Gao, I believe they're Gao 8 guns. You know, they have 100 millimeters of pen. You know, you can literally front annihilate AI medium tanks in aerialistic. So it's just like back in the Horton days, where, if you didn't know, in the Horton days, when it was incredibly strong, where it had full HVAP MK103 belts, you could take 3 Hortons, go after the 3 lines of tanks, which are on something like the Berlin map, and you could end the game in 5 minutes. You can do the same thing in the A7 without having to fight anybody. And at the same time, you can do it with having a fighter loadout, with the Sidewinders, and with flares, and with all of that stuff. So I looked at those 2 vehicles and I went, I am not touching that BR with a 10-foot pole, because I do not wish to play stock vehicles against these things right now. And luckily, now, after about a month and a half, we have some BR changes once again for some vehicles and once again for others. So the Harrier GR1 is now up to 10.0, where it should have been in the first place. Let's not kid ourselves. The Harrier GR1, you know, it doesn't just have access to what I talked about before, it also has access to a ballistic computer, so it has the arcade bombing marker in realistic with its bombs, so therefore it's very, very useful in ground realistic as well. You know, the VTOL capabilities give it a different way of being able to be flown, and it's just a vehicle which had all the bells and whistles. Whoever decided this thing had to be at 9.3 needs to be having a bit of a chat to when it comes to, you know, actual balance in this game. That decision, whoever made that, needs to just have a bit of a talking to. Then the A7D, now it's moving up to 9.7 from 9.3. Still believe that machine should go higher to 10.0, mainly because of its defensive capabilities, and also because of the fact that it can end games so quickly, especially now that we're adding more maps in, like the city map, that can be gamed within the first 5 minutes. The other thing about the A7D as well is it gets an attacker spawn, so its low-end acceleration doesn't even matter. The other point is it still works really well with the 10.0 ground lineup. Once again, has a ballistic computer, has all of those bells and whistles to be really, really useful. But thank God these have gone up. This puts a little bit less pressure on vehicles such as the premiums, which sit themselves at 8.7 and 9.0. So it might be worth considering, you know, picking up some of the premiums from the Gaijin store, which were on offer at least over this Christmas period. They're still on offer now. They will be, I believe, into the new year. But yeah, now that there's a lot less pressure on them, they are worth considering. Where before in the video, when I talked about them, this was before this change was made, they weren't even worth considering at all. The Q5A also goes up to 10.3 in arcade battles. Who's the madman playing this in arcade battles? I'd like to shake their hand. The Q5A, I'm guessing it's just going to space and dropping bombs on bases. I just don't know what's going on with this thing. It's quite impressive that it's gone up. And then the Buccaneer as well, which is definitely going to space and dropping bombs on bases. That's all it's doing. So yeah, not surprised the Buccaneer went up in a game mode like arcade, because it's very easy to stay alive and also just get a ton of RP with it. The Q5A is the weird one. That is definitely an odd one. The next one is 2.3.0.62 on the 30th, and they changed some interface stuff and also some sound stuff. So the available vehicles and crew slots can once again be switched using keyboard arrows. Nice. I didn't do that in the first place, but I'm very happy to see that. The bug has been fixed with the final statistics in a previous battle that ended in a nuclear explosion, sometimes being displayed in a tank battle. Oh, well, that's good. That's lovely to see. A bug has been fixed where it was impossible to open the menu in battle when opening statistics from the artillery strike window. Oh, well, that's a bit of an odd one, but good that they fixed it. A bug in the workshop where the list of item sets might display beyond the length of the window has been fixed. This has reminded me of something. So one of the problems with Operation Winter, and this will definitely get mentioned in the post-mortem video that I do about it, is they've decided that when it comes to the decals and when it comes to the decorations in the form of the grenade launcher guns, guess what? You can get duplicates. So now I have 3 Russian pinups. And this just means that now you're forced to use the market again if you're on PC. Now for console, this isn't too bad because you can exchange the items, so you can get whatever you want because you don't have access to the market. So that's great. I don't know. We don't have a workshop tab on PC. We don't have any exchange stuff on PC. It's just use the market or get screwed. And as a person who did do, the pinups the last time, since these are copies with a Chinese and a Swedish one, hopefully I get the Swedish and the Chinese pinup, or I'm going to have to use the market. I'm already going to have to use the market because of the fact that I've got double the same decoration in the first set. So that's really, really annoying. I wish they would stop doing this business practice. I know why they do it. It's money motivated. It's as simple as that. There is no other reason why it could exist. It is just to force people to use the markets in order to complete the collections. I'm not okay with this. I don't like things which have no benefit to the end user apart from like they have no benefit to the player. They have only benefit to the company, and that to me is wrong. There should be a mutual benefit agreement between the two parties, and that is not what's happening right now. A bug which could lead to it being impossible to use recipes in the workshop with the gamepad has been fixed. Well, that's good. Once again, another console thing. The exchange of the items in the Hot Tracks trophy has been made available in console workshops. There you go. They've fixed it for consoles. That's lovely to see. Then we have some sound. An original sound event has been added for flames on a player aircraft. Previously, the same sound was used for flames on both a player and an allied enemy aircraft, so now you'll be able to tell the difference. The sound of a shell hit on armor has been added to register hits of shells on a player's and allied enemy vehicles. Well, that's good. A more powerful powder charge sound for players' ground vehicle guns with a caliber of more than 57mm has been added. You hear this mainly in the gun sight, and it does sound kind of cool. It did take me a little bit of a while to get used to it, and on stuff like the M56 Scorpion, it sounds incredibly meaty for what it is, but I think overall it's a positive change. It does sound really nice. And then tank football, now they changed a few things. Lighting of the football arena has been improved, spotlights have been added, well that's lovely. In gamepad control, jump L1 and dash R2 are now assigned to different keys. The jump and accelerate icons now display hints according to the assigned keys, and bugs with tanks getting stuck in the goal net and in the arena walls near the gate have now been fixed. If you haven't played tank football, give it a go. It's a lot of fun. It's really, really fun to play. It's a little bit glitzy, it's a little bit buggy, but I think that adds to the charm of the game mode itself. I think it's just a lot of great fun. I would love to do tournaments based around it. I think it would be really fun. Then we have some Battle Pass changes. In the Battle Pass window, information about combat missions has been moved to a separate block. Well, that's good, so you'll be able to just click on them easily. The end of day has been changed to a time before the updates of combat missions. Well, that's a bit weird. A button for switching the two combat missions in the Battle Pass window has been added. Good. Added a link to Battle Pass information in the Battle Pass window. Nice. And in the Season of Strike challenge, the list of required unlocks is now displayed with a tag regarding their completion. So that just means it's much easier to follow. And a bug has been fixed where the Coalition challenge was not displaying completed challenge stages correctly. So nice to see that they've been fixing that as they're going along. For me, so far the Battle Pass has been a very, very positive thing. I think it's a really nice setup. It works incredibly well. I'm glad that they added it. I'm glad that, it's given me a reason to do dailies and stuff like that. It's really nice that it's here. Then we have some graphics and physics changes. A bug has been fixed where tank tracks might curve incorrectly and could be displayed inside wheels when driving on uneven surfaces. Then we also have flickering of objects in the environment, sometimes occurring when first switching view in the gunner's sights has been fixed. A rare crash of the game client due to GPU objects has been fixed, and a game crash on Intel HD Graphics 530 when launched in full screen mode has also been fixed. Lovely stuff. In the F-84F, the weight of the fuel and the empty weight of the aircraft have been fixed. That's another aircraft I do want to play, but at the same time, do I want to play it when it's 8.7? No. I would rather just take a Sabre. So we're going to have to see what happens with that vehicle. But now, I suppose, with the pressure off it, of the Harrier and also the A7, maybe it's worth giving it a go now. We'll have to see. Anyway, that is all of the changes of the last week or so. There's been a ton of them and a lot of interesting things to talk about. I would like to say thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful new year, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Elove Goat, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez B. Young, and also Hans Fagellen, Sebastian Mizon, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.